All right, let's get started. So we have a very exciting session lined up today with Mr. Kamaljit Singh, who is one of our most established migration agents in Melbourne, based in the Clayton branch. Mr. Singh is an expert in general migration visas, AAT matters, partner, parent, and employer-sponsored visas. And he's also skilled at handling complex skill assessment cases. He's familiar with the requirements for pretty much any given occupation. He's helped countless migrants settle down in Australia, and he's especially well equipped in handling non-routine and complex cases. So, welcome, Kamaljeet, and thank you for being part of our session today.
Thank you, Riddhi. Thank you for having me today. All right, thanks, Riddhi. Welcome, everybody. Today's session it's gonna be about social work. Uh, we are basically, hearing things in regards to people. Let me quickly share my screen as well. Before we start, my name is Kamaljit Singh. I'm a registered migration agent. I'm currently working with Aussizz Group in Clayton. And today's topic we're going to be discussing is social work, PR pathways. A lot of candidates, might be choosing nursing or teaching in past, but I believe I've personally chosen this social work PR pathway because I do believe in last 2 years due to COVID, a lot of youngsters and Australian community has been impacted due to, maybe staying in home and during these lockdowns as well. So today we'll be discussing how this social works pathway is going to be special for us and what are the PR pathway options. Uh, Moreover, before we start the session, fellas, Riddhi has already mentioned we are doing a bumper contest for a first winner $500, second winner 300, and third winner 250. We are basically trying to reward the candidate who is most engaged in the activities, like giving us a comment. How was the session about, and how was the inside of the session? Or they can tell their own story, how they felt like the session went through and what kind of information was shared to them. Was it any helpful, or can we improve ourselves when it comes to doing future summits in regards to education or PR pathways. Giveaways might be related to PT, IELTS, CCL coaching. It might be related to 485 visa consultations, and it might also be related to one-time PR consultations, or any kind of scholarship benefits can be given to the right candidate. So guys, if you are in this session and you believe, I do personally believe that I will be able to give much more information in regards to social work. But if you guys believe that yes, this session was helpful for you, do leave us comment so that we can try to understand what people are thinking about future sessions if we need to. Okay, guys, moving forward, Aussizz Group has been here since 2009. We have provided a lot of services when it comes to migration assistance, AAT review applications, educational enrollments and career guidance, PT and IELTS coaching, CCL coaching, health insurance, professional enrollments. Uh, Not all these, all the service has also during this pandemic, try to support the students and other sort of community who were struggling through this pandemic. Moving forward, let's get into the social worker PR pathway, guys. Under this social work and PR pathways, we're gonna be today discussing about general skill migration pathway, which is normally a best sort of pathway which students choose who are either getting enrolled in social work studies or they are going to get enrolled in social work studies. In general skill migration, guys, we have three visas, as you can see, 189, 190, and 491. 189 and 190 are both permanent residency visas. 491 is a skilled work regional provisional visas. So basically, it comes up with a condition, given that the immigration will allow you 5 years of visas. And once you have completed the requirement of living and working in region for 3 years and earned that specified income, then further you might be eligible for 191. Moreover, in regards to employer sponsor visas, we have got 482 and 186. For 482 and 186, these are both employer sponsor visas uh, focused on if you are working in the field for a given amount of period, which is eligible for the visas. Uh, your employer can sponsor you in future. Okay, let's discuss first of all what is general skill migration, what is the eligibility. Guys, general skill migration is a PR pathway which an international or any skilled candidate can choose. He or she, if she is under he or she is under 45. So any person who is under 45 and occupation is in the demand list. Now, when we are focusing on our list, our occupation social work is in the MTSSL list, which is a medium long term strategic list, skilled strategic list. So given that it's a very nice occupation, if you guys are choosing, which I believe may remain in the demand list in coming some years as well. Third, you must have a migration skill assessment. Migration skill assessment is a piece of document which tells the immigration what is your occupation. So any candidate who is applying for any of these visas has to have a mandatory migration skill assessment. Otherwise, it won't be easier for a department to see what kind of occupation you're holding. Fourth requirement, you must have minimum 6 in each, which is a competent English. Given that you can choose any of your favorite exams, PT, IELTS, TOEFL, CAE, whichsoever exams we are choosing, you must have minimum 6 in each of the components moving forward. Fifth requirement is you must have minimum 65 points for migration purpose. Now, given that, remember guys, these points are the minimum points which are required for general skill migration visas. That does not mean that the candidate will be getting the invite. This is just an eligibility that you must have minimum 65 points. Moving forward, you must meet the health requirement, guys, because we are talking about here permanent visas. So permanent visas must meet the health requirement, and you must also meet the character requirements. So these are some of the eligibility criteria as a candidate, which are mandatory criteria candidate must meet when he or she is looking for general skill migration PR pathways. Let's talk about a little bit about what is MTSSL. As I've mentioned, it's a medium and long-term strategic skill list. Basically, guys, how it happens is when we are focusing on these visas 189, 190, and 491, given that it's a skilled visa, so we have to go by a skill list. So when we are focusing on 189, it only allows us to go through MTSSL skill list. But when we are focusing on 190 and 491, it does allows us to grab other skill lists like STSOL and ROL list as well. But in our today's situation, social work is in the MTSSL list, which is one of the strongest lists. And applicants may apply for 189, 190, and 491 visa. This is your ENSCO code. So guys, if you are planning to study social work, okay, we may be eligible for all the three visas, given that, if we are meeting the requirement when it comes to 189, 190, 491, if your occupation is an MTSSL list, and our occupation does falls under the MTSSL list. Now, guys, as I mentioned previously, to apply for 189, 190, and 491, you must have a skill assessment. Now, the question rises here is, what is a skill assessment? Skill assessment is a piece of documentation which tells the department what is your skilled occupation. So not only social works, any candidate who's planning forward to apply for general skill migration visas must hold a skill assessment. And this document itself tell the department, in which occupation we are applying for permanent residency or 491 visas. Is it mandatory to have a skill assessment? Yes. When it comes to general skill migration visas, yes, skill assessment is a mandatory document which must be held before you are applying for the visa. Not some people may believe, okay, they might get the invite, they are lodging the visa, you can support the skill assessment document after you have lodged the visa. No, the answer is you must have a skill assessment before you apply the visa. Why do we need the skill assessment? To satisfy the requirement of the visa itself. First of all, that you must have a skill assessment. Second, skill assessment gives you an occupation on the basis which further, immigration decides on which visa we are going into and which pathway we are choosing into, and they might, invite you for 189, 190, 491. Looking at the main question, which authority does the skill assessment for social work? So guys, if you are planning to study in future under social work, Australian Association of Social Workers, as you can see, is written down here. Okay, this is your skill assessment authority, AASW we call it. Further, you can go onto Aussizz website discussing about or researching about on the Aussizz website, we have got a lot of information in regards to your 𝐸𝐴𝐻, which is social work. Okay, so that you can go and check the guidelines and the requirements as well, which we'll be discussing today as well. But if you need further information, this is the authority. Australian Association of Social Workers is the authority who will provide you with the skill assessment. Let's move on to what is the criteria that a person must meet to get the skill assessment. You have to follow all these criteria. Number one, the qualification must be specific qualification in social work. Now, guys, remember that when you are moving forward into a social work pathway, your studies has to be major in social work. Okay, whether you are doing bachelor's or master's, it must be major in social work. The qualification must be regarded as professional social work qualification in the country of training. So we have seen in the past that people have studied social work studies back home. Okay, so your qualification, if it is from overseas, it must be regarded as professional social work training, not elsewhere. Sometimes we have seen courses which are not major in social work. The skill assessment authority will not consider those qualifications. Criterion number 3 is the learning outcomes of the professional social work qualification is comparable to the learning outcomes that graduate of AASW accredited social work qualification must demonstrate. So basically what they are checking is, guys, what kind of qualification do you hold? What kind of learning outcomes you have, gone through while you were studying your, master's or bachelor's. So this is what the skill assessment authority is looking after. Criteria number 4, at least 980 hours of field education in at least 2 placement and with 2 contracting practice. Okay, with the requirement of 1 placement must be in a direct practice. So they are requiring you to, now these placement, guys, normally is done by the institutes. So when you are studying a social work studies, you will see these placements are already done by the institutes. So it's nothing to worry about. But moreover, what I will probably suggest to you guys, when you are looking to choose these courses, make sure you are trying to find a job in this particular field, or at least just stay in that kind of area where it's more easier for you to work, find job as a social work. Now, given that it's not that easy to find a job as a social work, but it's always good when you are in that kind of a field placement, which are a more sort of indirect practice that gives you exposure and opportunity to find a job. Criteria number 5 is you must have an English language skill demonstrated. Yes, there is a skill for English which a candidate has to meet when he or she is applying for a skill assessment. Now, previously it used to be 7 in each in one of the exam. Now, due to recent changes made in the guidelines, they have given us, that we can use 2 exams to satisfy the IELTS requirement for 7 in each, but that IELTS must have been done within 12 months. Let's discuss more onto that. The minimum score of 7 is achieved in either 1 or 2 settings. And so what does that mean is, guys, that if you are applying for a skill assessment, you have studied studies which is major in social worker, and you are further looking for skill assessment, you must have 7 in each of the module. Okay, either in 1 sitting or 2 sitting. A minimum score of 7 is achieved in each of the 4 components: listening, reading, writing, and speaking, in a maximum of 2 sittings in a 6 months period, and no component score is below 6.5. Where a component scores fall below, the test would not be accepted. So basically what they are saying is, if you are using 2 exams to satisfy the requirement of English, you must be aware that even if you are using, no score must be less than 6.5 in any of the report given by IELTS. So make sure, guys, 7 each, is not that hard. And if you believe you need further training, I'll probably suggest you to join into our, IELTS session so that further you can get further training and achieve your desired score. Or if you're not able to get you can meet the exemption requirement. Now, the exemption requirement is basically relying on when a candidate has, normally studied their secondary education in English, okay, in the nominated countries, and successfully completed the equivalent 3-year or more full-time tertiary studies, which was taught and assessed in English in nominated countries. Okay, so given that, guys, if you are not that kind of candidate which cannot be exempt, we must meet the requirement which is 7 in English in each of the modules. And again, recently policy was changed. Before it was only 1 sitting. Now they have said it can be 2 sittings, but you must make sure that each of the component, if you are using two sort of score reports, must have minimum 6.5 score. Now, these are just frequently asked questions, which I believe, normally candidates will ask me while going through, consultations. I have 3 years of degree in social work. Will I be eligible? Now, normally, given that bachelor's is normally 4 years when it comes to social work studies, but in some countries, we have seen that degrees in social work might be 3 years. Yes, it can be eligible, but still you need to apply for, your skill assessment ASW, and they will assess that what kind of components have you completed in your overseas qualification. And moreover, they will also see, do you possess any kind of post qualification experience? So for example, candidate has done 3 years of study and has been working currently as a social worker. That gives a sort of, what do you call it, the career development pathway for the candidate, and ASW might give you the skill assessment outcome as well. Second question is, I will complete my social work studies next year. Can I apply for assessment while I'm studying? See guys, if you have not completed your studies, you won't be eligible to get the skill assessment. So the answer is no, you cannot apply for the skill assessment if you are still studying. If I'm registered with the relevant authority in my country of training or employment, am I automatically eligible for the membership of the ASW? The answer is no, guys. Studying or working as a social work in any other country apart from Australia, okay, you cannot be straight eligible. If you have been working in New Zealand, there's a agreement pathway which you can choose, but still you need to apply for, ASW, and they will allow us to get the skill assessment on that particular pathway. But studying or working as a social worker in your own country does not means that you are automatically eligible for a skill assessment or a membership of ASW. Let's move on to once, for example, guys, you have done your skill assessment, okay, which is the most important path which you have to follow. Then comes the points table. Okay, how the points table has been calculated, will totally give it a little bit of discussion on that. Age, if your age is less than 25, okay, you will be getting 25 points. If you are that type of candidate who is lying between 25 to 32, you will be getting 30 points. Highest qualification, given that if a person has done bachelor's and master's, will be given 15 points. In our case, guys, normally the candidate might have done bachelor's and master's. If your qualification is equal to Australian qualification framework, then you might be getting 15 points as well. Australian study requirement is 2 years of study. Candidate who has studies for minimum 2 years in Australia is eligible for 5 points. English score, given that if you are holding competent English, which is 6 in each of the module, is 0 points. Proficient English, which is 7 in each, is 10 points. And furthermore, superior English, which is 8 in each of the module, is giving you 20 points. Now, guys, what we can do is, we know that, to obtain the skill assessment, we have to provide them the IELTS. But for when it comes to general skill migration points, we can still use the PTE or any other score. So the skill assessment, it says, yes, we have to get, IELTS, but for general skill migration points table, we can, however, use PTE to satisfy the highest score points. So which is a very good thing you guys can do. CCL is basically a community credential language, which normally, people call NATI. If you are able to obtain the desired sort of percentage in your exam, you can get 5 points. Employment claimed is basically when a person has been working in his or her nominated occupation, given that if you have been working in 1 year in Australia, you'll be getting 5 points. If you have worked for 3 years in overseas, you'll be getting 5 points. Partner skill points, if a partner has got a skill assessment, he or she can give you 5 points. Partner has got 6 in each, he or she can give you 5 points. So basically, a single candidate, the person who is not married, is getting 10 points, but a candidate who has got a partner and is not an Australian citizen or permanent residence has to obtain those 10 points by giving the skill assessment and plus 6 in each, which is minimum, competent English. Moving on to, let's discuss a little bit about, how it works with the visas. As you can see, guys, subclasses 189, 190, and 491. Points required are saying 65, which is minimum requirement. Here it says 60 because 5 points is given by the state. As you can say, it says here state sponsorship. 491 is 50 points. because state gives you 15 points and further 15 points for relative sponsor if you're going in under families stream, relative sponsorship. Skill assessment is mandatory. As I previously mentioned, all the 3 visas require full skill assessment. English language requirement is 6 in each, but in our case, because guys 7 in each is required, I'll probably suggest you to obtain more than that, because in general skill migration points table, previously in the previous slide, you won't be getting any points if you're getting 6 in each. Visa type is all these visas are permanent, apart from 491, which is a temporary leading to permanent visa, 5 years of visa leading further to 191 visa. If you're meeting live and work in regional, 53,900 for each year for 3 years, and for the lodge for 191. Let's discuss now, guys, if we are planning to study, or if we have completed our studies in social work, which states can be more beneficial. Let's talk, excuse me, let's talk about New South Wales first. New South Wales, guys, has been one of those states. Even in the pandemic, they have issued a lot of 190 invitations. Given that, that does not mean that New South Wales will choose just any candidate. They are choosing the cream candidate, which is holding 85 to 90 points. The requirement for the New South Wales is the candidate must be living in New South Wales for at least 3 months. Okay, the good news for the candidates who are in offshore, they are also eligible, but they are requiring at least minimum 3 years of work experience. But if you are in Australia and you are having a skill assessment and have got 85 points to 90 points, given that there are chances that New South Wales can be a very good option when it comes to 190 state nomination visa. In regards to a 491, yeah, New South Wales, now guys, 491 New South Wales has got a different criteria. They go by streams. Okay, stream 1, 2, and 3, and with the RY system. Now the last the window which was opened up for New South Wales 491 has closed yesterday. Okay, so what they used to do is, guys, they will give us 3 streams. Stream number 1 was the candidate has been working in New South Wales regional, okay, which is in between 3 to 12 months. Okay, if you have been, if say for example, if you are a social worker and you are living in New South Wales regional and you are eligible for stream 1, you can apply for, if you have worked for minimum 3 months, okay, you can be eligible for stream 1. Stream 2, if you have completed 2 years of study, which is, a minimum 2 years of study from New South Wales regional itself. Stream number 3, if you're holding a skill assessment, which is required in New South Wales regional. Okay, so under stream 1 and 2, those candidates are being selected, guys, who have studied or they are living and working in their nominated occupation. Under stream 3, they are only picking up the candidates. Say for example, the candidate was holding minimum points and was living in New South Wales, they have picked up that candidate. I'll personally suggest, guys, if you are planning to study, or if you are studying social work, I will probably personally suggest you to go with 190 option by obtaining high points. So given that you must score minimum 18 each, which is superior English, and you must clear a CCL exam, so that we are given on that 80 to 85 to 90 sort of we are reaching that kind of a target score, so that when New South Wales are picking up the cream profiles, they will be inviting candidates, something like that. If you believe you want to hit 2 birds with 1 stone, I'll probably suggest you we can move into regional, because they are saying you must be living in New South Wales for 3 months. They never mentioned Sydney. So it's always good, say for example, if we are living in regional and working as a social work, if not 190, 491 can be a possibility. It's a very good option if you're choosing a New South Wales, or if you are studying or living in New South Wales. Moving forward, guys, Victoria. From last 2 years, guys, we've seen Victoria has been very sort of picky on picking occupations which are related to health sector, or I can say which are the candidates who are working in target sector. But the good news for social worker is social work has been introduced in the workforce, that if you are that candidate who is working in and living in Victoria as a social worker, you can be eligible for visa options for Victoria 190 and 491. Given that for 190 minimum points required are 65 and 491 are 50. But the question rises there, guys, that on how much point you believe that the Victoria state will nominate a candidate, I'll probably say 80 to 85 points, because there will be a lot of social work, students who are living and working in Victoria and they have already obtained high points. So if you are in Victoria, guys, make sure for Victoria you are holding high points for 190, and if you want to go with 491 regional, you must be living and working in regional itself only. Working or living in metro, you won't be eligible for 491. Okay, guys. So Victoria has introduced social work recently, last week, which is a very good news for the candidates who have joined the session today, that Victoria can be beneficial for you if you are in Victoria. TESI has always been a very good options. Okay, when if you are planning to study in Tasmania for 2 years, any offshore candidate who is not in Australia and has got plans to study for 2 years, I'll probably suggest you Tasmania can be a very nice option as well. Moreover, if you have completed your studies and are able to show 6 months of full-time experience in your nominal occupation in Tasmania, with an employer who has been for last 12 months in Tasmania, may lead us to 190 as well. So these are one of the options for 190, which is straight PR. For 491, they are saying 1 year of study and 1 year of stay in Tasmania, or 6 months of full-time experience is required, not working in your nominal occupation. But remember, guys, when they are considering this option, not working in the occupation, they are basically seeing if you are not working in your normal occupation, how did you found the job or what kind of job you are doing. They are not considering the occupations like security guard or supermarket or petrol station candidates. Okay, so make sure if you are not working as a social worker, it has to be some other job. Okay, but again, if you have studied in social work, it's always good to find a job in a social work. Now I'm not saying is that easy to find a job as a social worker. Okay, but still try to find a job which is more suitable in that field, so that if you are in Tasmania not working as a social work but you are working in the same sector, there might be chances they'll invite you for 491 as well. Okay, moving forward, visa option for Northern Territory. State nomination says for 190, 2 years of study in NT is similar like Tasmania, the 2 years of study in NT or 6 months of work experience. Now, if the candidate for 491, 2 years of study in NT, but no work experience. So again, we have seen guys, candidates who will study in NT and then they left NT. Say for example, 6 months they went to South Australia or Western Australia to try their luck, and then they come back. If NT finds out something like that, they can only give you 491. So make sure if you are choosing any kind of the state to complete your studies, guys, just start till end until the PR pathway. If you are choosing, just remain in that state so that you can get the more beneficial outcomes from the state. Moreover, when it's about the state is more about how much you are committed towards the state. So if you are jumping from state to state, the commitment doesn't exist. So it's very hard to convince the state how this candidate's gonna stay here for next 2 years when it comes to 190 obligations, or 3 years when it comes to 491 obligations. So make sure just remain in that state wherever you are studying, try to obtain the job and go for the best PR pathway. South Australia, for 190, they are saying you must be currently working in your nominated occupation or closely related occupation for last 18 months in Adelaide. So if you are now, what South Australia has done, guys, they have divided South Australia itself from they have said Adelaide is one sort of scenario. They have set the criteria, and outside Adelaide, which is outer regional South Australia, is one criteria. So if you are working as a social worker for 18 months in Greater Adelaide, chances are for 190. 12 months outside Adelaide, chances are for 190. For 491, they are saying if you are working for last 12 months, 6 months in South, or anywhere in 6 months in South Australia. Let me have a look. Yeah. Okay. So related occupation for the last 6 months in South Australia is 491. So when we are comparing state, guys, I would say for social work, every single state is beneficial, but just don't start jumping up and down from state to state, because when it comes to commitment, say for example, Victoria is giving candidates, okay, you are living in Victoria, you're working in Victoria, and when we are lodging the ROI for Victoria, this is basically we are telling them, okay, we are working. They're looking at where did you study, how many points you are holding. So every other state will look at that criteria as well. So make sure if you are choosing South Australia, which is one of the best states when it comes to 190 and 491, stay there, try to find jobs, or maybe go to out regional and try to find jobs for further, PR options. Okay. Moving forward for Queensland and ACT, Queensland is basically requiring 6 months of full-time experience in nominal occupation. Additional experience required for some occupation and job offer letter is required. 491 is saying 3 months full-time work experience and job offer from regional is required. Now, why we are saying regional? This is basically outside Brisbane. Okay, so if you are studying in Queensland, make sure I'll probably suggest you work experience would be required, and for the job offer letter is also required in your nominal occupation. ACT, they require applicant to be working for minimum 6 months full time in any occupation or and have higher Canberra matrix points. Now, what is this is guys? Matrix is basically a points table, you can say, which ACT uses to invite a candidate. Okay, so make sure if you are working there and you show 6 months of work experience for at least 6 months. Moreover, if you have studied there, there are high chances you'll go straight for 190. Moreover, you must obtain 8 in each, which is superior English. Okay, so that your matrix points can be higher. 491, minimum 3 months part-time is required. Okay, and now they are saying in any occupations, but I will still suggest you that when it comes to matrix point system, working in any occupation would not help us. It has to be in your nominal occupation, so that your matrix point system, the matrix points table, your points will go up, and there are probability high chances for you to getting invite. Okay, Western Australia, because Western Australia has been a very hot topic in COVID as well. They have invited candidates from different states, especially giving 190s. They have got their own schedule sort of system, schedule 1, schedule 2. Schedule 1 is general stream residing in Australia and high points 1 year of work experience. So a candidate who has been living in Australia and is holding high points, when I'm saying it's residing in Australia, can be outside Western Australia. Okay, so for example, if a candidate is living in Victoria, he's got high points like something like 85 to 90 points and has minimum 1 year work experience, can apply for schedule 1 criteria. Schedule 2 says high points and 12 months of employment contract must be shown if you are invited. So basically what they are saying is you can lodge an EUI. If your EUI has been selected, you must provide us a 12 months of employment contract, future contract under this schedule. The other one is graduate stream. If a person has studied in Western Australia, 6 months of work experience is required. Okay, so if a candidate has studied in Western Australia, completed his studies in social work, you must show minimum 6 months of work experience, and then there are chances for straight 190. Okay, guys, the visa which I have spoken about recently, okay, was only general skill migration visas. Okay, general skill migration visas are visas which are directly linked with the individual, and individual meets the eligibility, meets the requirement of the state, and apply for 190 or 491, or if for 189 immigration start inviting candidate, you might be eligible. Okay, now these visas, what we are discussing now on from is basically an employer sponsor visas, a temporary skill shortage visa. So for example, if you're that type of a candidate that you have studied your social work and you are working with someone as a social work, okay, for 482, at least 2 years of full-time work experience is required to be eligible. Okay, so if you're on a 485 or if you're on a bridging visa, okay, I'll probably suggest you to utilize that sort of bridge or use your visa, which is again 485 is a golden opportunity. If you are a master candidate, you'll get for 3 years. Bachelors, we are still fighting on that change it to 3 years, but let's see how it goes. But yeah, you must utilize that 2 years full-time work experience to obtain for 482 if your employer is happy to sponsor you. Okay, now the occupations on the STSOL are eligible for short stream, 2 years plus 2 years, no transition to PR. Occupations on MLTSSL. Now this is us guys. Okay, we are in MLTSSL list, which means we'll get the visa for 4 years and transition to PR after 3 years. So transition is how is 482 186. 186 is PR. So if a candidate has got 482 visa for 4 years, okay, they can apply for 186 after 3 years from the same employer under transition TRT stream. Okay, if you believe you want to apply for a direct entry 186, you require 3 years. So easy speaking is guys, if you are having 2 years of work experience, you can apply for 482, which is not PR, but it's a temporary skill shortage visa, meeting minimum requirement and getting the employer sponsor. Okay. 186 is PR, which will require 3 years of work experience, and the obligation says you must work with the same employer. Okay. 186 direct entry and TRT, I'll explain a little bit. Applicant must have 3 years of full-time work experience to be eligible for 186. So if you are that type of a candidate that who can show 3 years of work experience, may be eligible for 186. Now you guys might be thinking, if I'm having that kind of work experience, I might be eligible for state sponsorship. Of course, that I personally believe state sponsorship are good options, are the best options, but sometimes uh, every individual has got their own scenarios, their own history or their own cases, but they might be working with the same employer or they might be working with any different employer for full-time 3 years. You are eligible for 186, but the experience, guys, remember, it has to be after the qualification. Working 3 years full-time on 482 visa with the same employer can be eligible for TRT stream. As I previously mentioned, guys, if you had 2 years of work experience and you apply for 482, you will get the 482. Once you obtain the 482, then you can further move from 482 to 186 if you have got 3 years. So I will have 2 years for 482. Further one more year I'm working, I'll have 3 years of work experience. I can go into direct entry. If the employer says, no, I don't want to sponsor you for direct entry, I want you to work for 3 years for TRT. Yes, for 482 out of 4 years, when I have done 3 years, I'm eligible for TRT. Age requirement must be under 45 for 186 unless transitional arrangement applies, and skill assessment is mandatory. Competent English is required. Now, these visas, fellows, employer sponsor visas are not, sort of point stable visas or you are competing with anyone. It is more or less like meeting the eligibility. So if a candidate is basically meeting the eligibility, he or she may be eligible for 186. But on the other hand, uh, when it comes to general skill migration, sometimes it's competition that state will be inviting the candidate who has got the highest points, out in the market. What is the importance of work experience? Work experience, guys, is basically when a candidate has been working in their nominated occupation can further help them to get PR. Working in your occupation in social work can open many pathways for PR, and it also helps you enhance your career. Of course, guys, because if you have studied something, uh, for example, if you're studying social work or if you're studying nursing or any kind of studies, is no point you go and start working any other odd jobs. Yes, we do understand during our studies, sometimes to survive or due to financial hardship we are doing odd jobs, but I'll probably suggest you guys, once you've completed your studies, try to get the job in your nominated occupation. Okay, so that it's easy for you to further for claiming points and PR pathway option. You can use your experience towards skill experience points for 189, 190 and 491. Of course, as I mentioned you guys, that if you are working in Australia for 1 year is 5 points extra. So that type of work experience can help you as a social work to obtain high points. It has to be your, when it says you can use your experience, that means experience as a social worker, not as any other occupation. It can also help you apply for particular state nominations, of course, for 190, if you are in Victoria or if you are in any other state. If you are meeting the minimum requirement like 6 months or 12 months of sort of work experience, there are chances that state will nominate you. And if you believe that, okay, I'm in that kind of a state, where, okay, say for example, a person has studied in Tasmania, but he's not able to find a job, but he can get a job in, for example, South Australia, or if he can get a job in Western Australia or even in Victoria, there are chances for 190. Moreover, you can use that work experience toward 482, 494, 186 employer sponsored visas as well. Of course, as I previously mentioned you guys, that for 482 visa, we require 2 years. For 186, we require 3 years of work experience. 494, we do require 3 years of work experience. So work importance of work experience is that it will open up a lot of, career pathways. Moreover, points, and moreover, windows for employer sponsors if you're working in a normal occupation. Okay. Let's go a little bit about state nomination quota, how they are working into with Victoria. They are focusing on health sector. As I previously mentioned, guys, that Victoria, Melbourne is the #1 city of the world which has been into lockdown, and a lot of healths have been affected when it comes to Australian community. That's why it would be the reason that Victoria has decided to put social worker in their workforce occupation. So I'll probably suggest you, if you are a candidate who is in Victoria, they will be inviting you. This is what we are assuming. They will be inviting you with high points. So make sure that, just by working and under 65 points, yes, they may invite 65 points, but if you are that type of candidate, you want to keep your first hit, that's it. I'll probably suggest you to go with high points, something like, superior English, clear your CCL examination, try to obtain a job, and then go from there. Okay. As I mentioned, since the COVID-19, the demand has, basically moved to economy recovery. Now it is basically transitioning towards, public health, moreover, trying to help the community. So social work has been that kind of an occupation. It has always been in demand. But again, I'll probably suggest, if you are a future student in social work, it's a very nice pathway. If you are a current student in social work, it's still a very nice pathway, but make sure, guys, you are very well prepared, because if your studies are finishing, try to start focusing on your English and your other points, so that your time is not wasted and we are further moving towards PR. Okay. So the other thing I also want to mention is, guys, before due to this pandemic, a lot of students have been stuck overseas. Okay, so if you were stuck overseas and now you are moving back to Australia to complete your studies, or if you have completed your studies, or if you are getting that kind of TR eligibility visa next month, or sorry, this month, try to utilize that visa options. For discussing the state or researching the state, that okay, whether I should stay in Victoria or whether I should move out of Victoria if you're in Victoria. If you are saying, okay, I can't get that kind of points like 85 or something, try some of the states which are inviting candidates with less point, like South Australia or Tasmania. Okay, guys, so just a reminder again, this session was totally dedicated towards social worker. We discussed about skill assessment. Let's go a little bit of brief that 7 each will be required for skill assessment. Furthermore, you must have completed studies which was major in social work. Third thing, once you have started focusing on getting your skill assessment, try to clear superior English with PTE, which can further help you out in general skill migration points table. Moreover, moving on to state sponsorship, state nominated visas, all the states are very beneficial for us, which is very good thing. But remember, sometimes we have seen that states are inviting, like, maybe after 3 months or 4 months. So make sure we are with the highest points, so that if there are less invites, or given in that time frame that there are less seats, we have high possibility to get the visa invite, sorry. Okay, so if you believe your session about social work was good, guys, do leave us a comment as well. What kind of information you require further from us, you can leave that kind of a comment as well. Just a reminder that we are doing a bumper contest, and Riddhi will be leaving a short link, okay, if you want to leave your comment. This was me. Thanks for joining, fellas. And if you want to discuss further any options for social work, this is my phone number. Okay, for Clayton office, 99007272. You can contact us, and I'll probably get back to you for your further visas inquiries. But if you have right now any visas inquiries, or if you want to discuss your case further, we can probably discuss it more. Just give me 1 second before I close this slide.
Yes, Kamaljit, we actually have a guest called Juan who is asking us a question. He says in the previous session, mention the job opportunity in the government sectors. Are graduate visa holders eligible for such job offers as well?
See, we have seen recently, Riddhi, that people have been offered a job, because department, especially if you're in Victoria, a lot of job opportunities have come up. So I'll probably suggest, when it comes to job opportunities, government jobs are being contracted under a private person itself. But if you are that type of candidate, who has got a government job opportunity, it's going to be a very sort of good option for you. So if it was me, I'll probably suggest you go for it. Now, if your question is that, am I eligible for the government jobs? Then again, it's up to the company's policies. Okay, it's about discussing that with the local, recruiters to see what kind of requirement do they require. Because what happens is they are looking for a candidate who is more committed and who is more dedicated towards a long time period. Because social work, guys, it's a very critical sort of occupation. You can't just, go to job, do your job and go home. It's a mental thing because you are dealing with youth sometime. You are dealing with a sort of a candidate who has gone into that kind of a trauma, and we are trying to recover him or her from out of that. So yes, there are possibilities. Moreover, uh, Australia is getting, less people from overseas. So if you are here, there are chances that you might be getting, job opportunities in future as well.
Thanks for such an elaborate answer, Kamaljit. One, I hope that answers your question. Meanwhile, SR is raising his hand. I assume he's trying to ask a question. SR, you can actually leave that in the comments box, and Kamaljit will answer the question for you. In case you're not able to do that, you can always just contact Kamaljit on his email ID or his phone number. His contact details are provided in the comment box. If the rest of you do not have any questions, that'll be it for today. Thank you so much for joining us at the Education Summit on day 2. Don't forget to leave your feedback for us. The review link is in the comments below. And as Kamaljit also mentioned, you can enter the bumper contest as well as the giveaway contest. Both the links are and the details to enter are in the chat box as well. We have an exciting day lined up about trade courses, fabrication, cookery, all sorts of things tomorrow. So don't miss out. It's going to go on all the way up until Friday, 6 p.m. So come back tomorrow and hope you're enjoying the summit with us. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Kamaljit. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Riddhi. Thank you. Did we get SR's question or not, Riddhi?
No, we didn't get SR's question.
No, that's all right. So if you are happy, SR, we've got some time, we can wait. But other thing I want to suggest for Van before we go quickly, Riddhi, sometimes people are very curious that you should get into the government sector, but I have seen that a private sector might pay you more as well. Okay, because sometimes let's compare, for example, a candidate. If you want to go to hospital, you better go to a private hospital rather than a government hospital. So we have seen candidates who are getting more pay. If you are worrying about pay, choose a private sector, which are more sort of opportunities, career goals and opportunities are lined up for private. Yes, when we come from overseas, we believe government jobs are sort of, longer durations and stuff. But at the moment, I'll probably suggest you whatever you get it's good as long as, you get the job as a social worker.
That's good. Actually, one has asked a follow-up question. 6 months of work experience for Western Australia has to be in Australia, or can that experience be overseas as well?
You see, 6 months of Western Australia experience they are requiring for Western Australia candidate who has studied in Western Australia. Okay, so if you are that candidate, if you say, for example, if you are from overseas, okay, that means your qualification is from overseas. So what I'll probably suggest you is to get your skill assessment first. Okay, let the assessing authority AASW assess your qualification, because if your qualification is not major in social work, it's no point we start looking for jobs in social work, because skill assessment is the main sort of pillar which will lead further to PR and tells what occupation we are into. And if they assess it, then you go forward and look for the job in that particular state. Given that, I'll probably suggest you, if you have studied from overseas, South Australia would be a best option, working in your nominated occupation, which might lead to 190.
That's great information. We have one more question from Aussizz, who's asking us about the demand for early childhood educators and the possibility of getting a 190 invitation in the state of Victoria.
See, Afsar, earlyhood childhood, as you already know that, while Victoria is increasing, population has gone up a little bit, earlyhood child teachers are already pre-primary, when we are talking about, are already in the sort of demand. But remember, when they are inviting people, they're inviting people with high points. Okay, so it's no point you just sit down on 60 points. Okay, 5 points are gonna be given by the state, and I'm just sitting on 65 points. I'll probably suggest you that if you are looking forward, or your partner is looking forward to choose the teaching, we have to sit somewhere, about clear the NATI, do your ATEACH, try to find a job, Okay, and then apply for your ROI. And then there are possibilities that you'll get the invites as well.
Alrighty, that's it for all the questions. Thanks everyone once again, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you, Kamaljit.
Thanks, Riddhi. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you very much.